Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we're going to unpack a case that has haunted a community for over a decade, a story that began on a quiet morning in a high school gym. So, picture this. Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia. A pretty typical high school gymnasium, right? You can almost smell the polish and maybe old sweat. And along one wall, you've got these rows of tall, rolled-up wrestling mats, standing upright, almost like, silent sentinels, usually just part of the scenery.
Just background noise, really. Part of the equipment.
Exactly. But on January 11th, 2013, that mundane routine, it was just shattered. Students found something unimaginable inside one of those mats. The body of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson.
An absolutely horrifying discovery for those kids to make.
Unthinkable. And the initial official ruling, it came back relatively quickly, a tragic accident. They called it positional asphyxia.
Right, that was the term used.
But for Kendrick's family, Kenneth and Jacqueline Johnson, and honestly, for so many people who followed this case, that explanation, it just felt deeply unsatisfying.
It left a huge gap, didn't it? A lot of unanswered questions.
A massive chasm. It's a death that's officially closed on the books, but for many, it feels like a murder still waiting to be solved. So today, we're going to explore this heartbreaking and, frankly, contentious case. Let's unpack this. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the investigations and all the different theories, maybe we should just take a moment. Who is Kendrick Johnson?
That's important context. Yeah. Kendrick was 17, a student there at Lowndes High.
Mm-hmm.
By all accounts, people liked him. He seemed respected, had a positive attitude.
Played sports too, right? Football.
Yeah, he was on the school's football team.
Yeah.
So, familiar face around campus, involved in things, part of the school community.
So his death wasn't just some abstract event. It was a real loss.
A huge loss for his friends, his teammates, and obviously especially for his family. And they're the ones still fighting for answers today.
And that fight really starts with the specifics of the discovery itself, doesn't it?
It does. January 11th, 2013. Students find his body inside one of those big upright wrestling mats in the gym.
Can you give us a sense of the scale? How big are these things?
Yeah, so the mat, when it's standing upright like that, it's about 6 feet tall. And the opening inside, the diameter, is roughly 14 inches. Pretty narrow.
Okay, so tight space. And he was found head first inside.
That's right, head first. And the timeline of when he was last seen is really key here. He was last spotted entering that gym after morning classes on January 10th, the day before he was found.
Just walked into the gym, and that becomes the central point for everything that follows.
Exactly. That seemingly simple act is where all the questions, all the conflicting theories start to revolve.
Okay, so the scene is set, this awful discovery in this quiet gym. How did the authorities initially handle it? What was the immediate response?
Well, the official investigation got underway pretty quickly. You had the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the GBI.
The state agency, yeah.
Right. And their conclusion, which, as you said, came relatively fast, was that Kendrick's death was an accident.
And the theory behind that?
The theory they put forward was that Kendrick had somehow fallen into the mat. The story that circulated widely was that he was trying to get a pair of shoes, maybe shoes he'd stored inside the mat's hollow center.
So reaching down for a shoe, and he falls in.
That was the idea. And that he then died from positional asphyxia. Basically, he got stuck in a position where he couldn't breathe.
Because the space was so confined?
Exactly. The theory was he became inverted, head down, lodged so tightly he couldn't move enough to get air. Suffocated.
And the official autopsy backed this up.
The GBI's autopsy report supported that conclusion, yes, which seemed to solidify the accidental death ruling.
But as we know, for Kendrick's parents, Kenneth and Jacqueline, that just wasn't acceptable. They felt something was deeply wrong.
Absolutely not. Their gut feeling, that parental instinct, was screaming that this wasn't the whole story.
So when you hit that wall, the official ruling is accident. What can a family even do? What's the next step?
It's an incredibly difficult position. And that disbelief, that conviction that something else happened, it really pushed them to act. They knew they needed serious help, legally and investigatively.
Them too?
They hired Ben Crump, a very high-profile civil rights attorney.
Ah, okay. That definitely raises the profile.
Instantly. His involvement brought national attention, media scrutiny, much more than a local case might normally get.
And they didn't just rely on lawyers, right? They pursued their own medical investigation.
Critically, yes.
Yeah.
They commissioned a second private autopsy. They hired Dr. Bill Anderson, an independent forensic pathologist.
And his findings, were they different?
Dramatically different.
Yeah.
Dr. Anderson found things that directly contradicted the official GBI report.
Like what?
He found evidence of blunt force trauma, specifically to Kendrick's jaw and neck.
Blunt force trauma. That sounds not accidental.
Exactly. That led Dr. Anderson to conclude that Kendrick's death was actually a homicide, that some external force was involved.
Wow. Okay, so 2 autopsies, 2 completely different conclusions on the cause of death.
Polar opposites, really. Accident versus homicide.
But there was something else discovered during that second autopsy, wasn't there? Something truly disturbing.
Yes, and this is perhaps the most shocking and, frankly, bizarre element of the case. During Dr. Anderson's examination, it was discovered that Kendrick's internal organs were missing.
Missing, like all of them.
Reportedly, yes. His internal organs weren't there, and the cavity, his body, had been stuffed with newspaper.
Stuffed with newspaper. That's hard to even process.
It's incredibly disturbing.
Yeah.
And for the Johnson family, this discovery was absolute fuel for their belief that a cover-up was happening. It suggested a deliberate, deeply troubling interference with the evidence right from the very beginning.
How could that even happen? The missing organs.
That's the huge question. It raises profound issues about the chain of custody, how the body was handled initially, the first autopsy process.
It's fascinating in a grim way how 2 medical exams could be so different. But the organ thing, that's beyond just interpretation, isn't it?
It really is. While forensic interpretation always has nuances, maybe one pathologist looks deeper, has different resources, missing organs, and newspaper stuffing, that points to something else entirely. It raises fundamental questions about the integrity of the initial process.
Understandably, that discovery, it must have just intensified everything. The family's conviction, the public outcry.
Absolutely. It sent shockwaves far beyond Valdosta. This detail, the organs replaced with newspaper, it pushed the case onto a national stage.
And that led to federal involvement, right?
It did. Because of the national attention, the family's persistence, the serious allegations of a cover-up, the FBI and the Department of Justice, the DOJ, they actually launched their own federal investigation.
That's a big step. Federal resources coming in.
A very significant step. It brought the weight of federal agencies to bear on what started as a local case. People were hopeful, hoping for clear answers.
How long did that federal investigation last?
It was extensive. It went on for 3 years.
And the outcome?
In 2016, the DOJ announced their findings. They concluded there was insufficient evidence to support federal criminal charges.
Insufficient evidence for criminal charges. What about civil rights? That was part of the concern too, wasn't it?
Yes. And they also stated they would not be filing a federal civil rights case. So, from the federal government's perspective, the case was officially closed.
That must have been devastating for the family.
A huge blow. They'd placed so much hope in the federal investigation, uncovering what they believed was the truth.
But even with the federal case closed, the questions didn't just go away, did they? There were still these inconsistencies nagging at people.
Not at all. Despite the official closures, key issues kept plaguing the case, kept fueling the family's fight and the public's skepticism.
And one of the biggest ones was the surveillance video from the gym.
Exactly. The CCTV footage became a major battleground.
What were the specific allegations about the video? Was it just missing or?
It was more specific than just missing. The family's legal team alleged actual tampering. They pointed to things like missing minute long chunks of footage during crucial time windows, or sudden shifts in camera angles that seemed unnatural, or video going inexplicably out of focus right when someone might have been entering or leaving the area.
So anomalies that suggested deliberate manipulation, not just poor quality footage.
That was the allegation. In any investigation, the integrity of digital evidence like that, having a clear chain of custody, it's crucial. Any hint of tampering, any unexplained glitch, it casts a huge shadow. And it certainly did here. Forensic video analysis became this really contested area.
And alongside questioning the video, the family kept pushing legally.
Relentlessly. They've shown incredible resilience, filing lawsuit after lawsuit.
Against who?
Various people, school officials, local law enforcement personnel, different government agencies. Their core allegation has remained consistent: a conspiracy to cover up Kendrick's murder.
Have those lawsuits been successful?
Many have faced major legal hurdles. Several have been dismissed by courts for various reasons, but the family hasn't stopped. They appeal the dismissals, they file new actions. It just shows their unwavering belief and determination to get what they see as justice for Kendrick. It's an ongoing battle.
So, okay, we have the official story, accidental death. Then we have the family's counter-narrative, backed by their autopsy, pointing to homicide and a potential cover-up, fueled by things like the missing organs and video issues. How does the official side address these huge contradictions?
Well, the official stance hasn't really changed. It remains grounded in that initial GBI autopsy and the local law enforcement conclusion. Positional asphyxia, an accident.
But how do they explain away the blunt force trauma found by Dr. Anderson?
That's where it gets difficult for the official narrative to hold firm for many people. The official theory doesn't easily account for injuries like trauma to the jaw and neck if it was just a fall and getting stuck.
Right. And the physical scenario itself. An athletic 17-year-old getting so stuck he can't get out.
Exactly. Supporters of the accident theory might talk about the mat's flexibility or how the body was positioned when found. But critics find it hard to believe. They question why there weren't more signs of a struggle on the mat itself or injuries from Kendrick trying desperately to free himself. It seems improbable to many.
And then you layer on the missing organs. I mean, how does the accident theory even begin to explain that?
It simply doesn't. The missing organs, replaced with newspaper, that detail is so far outside the realm of a typical accidental death investigation. It's the single point that makes the official story incredibly hard for the family and many others to accept.
Plus the video allegations. It all just chips away at this simple explanation.
It really does. These gaps, these critiques, they seriously undermine the accidental death theory for a lot of observers. It forces you to look at other possibilities.
And for the family, those missing organs are central, aren't they, to their argument?
Absolutely central. For them, it's not just a strange anomaly. It's evidence. Evidence of a deliberate act, not an accident. Evidence, they believe, of an effort to hide the truth.
Which leads directly into their theory, the homicide theory.
Exactly. That theory is rooted in Dr. Anderson's private autopsy findings. The blunt force trauma to the jaw and neck. Injuries they feel are consistent with an assault, not a fall.
So they believe he was attacked.
They believe he was killed, possibly in the gym or nearby, but definitely not by falling into the mat accidentally. And that his body was then placed inside the mat.
As a way to hide what really happened.
Presumably, yes.
Yeah.
To conceal the actual cause of death, the circumstances, and the missing organs. For the family, that's proof of foul play, proof of efforts to compromise the evidence, maybe hide signs of trauma.
But didn't the federal investigation look into all this and the grand jury?
Yes, and that's the crucial counterpoint. Despite Dr. Anderson's findings, the 3-year FBI DOJ investigation concluded there wasn't sufficient evidence for federal charges. And a state grand jury also declined to indict anyone.
So why? If there was evidence of blunt force trauma, what made the evidence insufficient for them was Dr. Anderson's autopsy question.
That's the perplexing part. The exact reasoning of the DOJ or the grand jury isn't always fully public. It could be about the legal standard of proof needing evidence beyond a reasonable doubt for criminal charges. Perhaps there were conflicting interpretations of the trauma or questions about when it occurred, maybe issues with witness testimony or lack thereof. We don't know the specifics of why they found it insufficient.
So it creates this stalemate. One side has autopsy findings suggesting homicide. The other side, official bodies, say there's not enough proof to act on it legally.
Precisely. It leaves the case in this perpetual state of limbo and contention.
Which naturally leads people to the most explosive theory, the cover-up.
Yes, that's where the narrative often goes, especially online and in activist circles. It's the most controversial angle.
And the allegation isn't just that mistakes were made, but that it was deliberate.
The allegation is active cover-up. The Kendrick's death, believed by proponents of this theory to be a murder, was intentionally obscured by officials.
And potentially to protect specific people.
That's often part of the speculation, that it might have been done to shield individuals connected to local law enforcement families. There were students whose parents were reportedly an FBI agent and a sheriff's deputy, and their names often come up in these online discussions, though no official findings have implicated them.
And the evidence cited for this cover-up theory is primarily...
Often, it comes back to those alleged inconsistencies in the CCTV footage. The missing segments, the blurred parts at key moments. Proponents see that as direct evidence of tampering, hiding proof of who was involved.
The idea being the untampered video would show everything clearly.
That's the belief, that it would reveal who was in the gym, what happened, potentially implicating people.
But we have to stress, this is speculative, right? Legally speaking.
Absolutely vital to stress that. While this theory is widespread and deeply felt by many, particularly the family and supporters, it hasn't been substantiated by court-admissible evidence. The federal investigations explicitly found insufficient proof for these conspiracy allegations.
It highlights that gap between deeply held suspicion and what can be proven in a legal framework.
Exactly. And the lack of clear, satisfying answers often breeds these kinds of theories. But it's crucial to separate speculation from established fact.
This whole situation, it really does raise bigger questions, doesn't it, about trust in the system?
It absolutely does. It really throws into sharp relief how quickly public trust can erode when the official story is so strongly rejected by those most affected, especially when there are underlying concerns about bias.
You mean concerns related to race and how investigations are handled?
Yes. The Kendrick Johnson case touches on those broader systemic issues. Concerns about potential systemic racism, about whether investigations involving minority individuals, especially in the South, are always handled with the same rigor and impartiality. Critics and civil rights advocates sometimes point to a historical context where deaths of Black individuals under suspicious circumstances haven't always received the fullest attention, particularly if powerful local figures might be involved.
So this case became more than just about Kendrick.
For many, yes, it became a rallying point, a symbol for demanding more transparency, more accountability from law enforcement and the justice system, especially in these kinds of contested deaths involving minorities.
And that stark contrast, accident versus homicide, GBI autopsy versus private autopsy, official denial versus missing organs, it just fuels that mistrust.
Profoundly. It creates this deep community skepticism, not just in Valdosta, but resonating outwards. It symbolizes that breakdown of faith when official explanations clash so violently with the family's gut feeling, their independent findings, and just basic common sense questions from the public.
It really makes you think about the foundations of justice when the core medical evidence itself is disputed.
That's the absolute crux of it, isn't it? The dueling autopsies. It's like the foundation of the case has this massive crack running through it.
How can a case even proceed when you have such fundamentally different medical conclusions?
It's incredibly difficult. It creates this narrative split that's almost impossible to reconcile. On one hand, the official cause, positional asphyxia.
Which scientifically implies getting stuck in a way that physically stops breathing, right? That the body's own weight compressing the chest.
Correct. The theory posits his inverted position in that tight space prevented his diaphragm from working, leading to suffocation. No external violence implied, just a tragic freak accident.
But then the other side, Dr. Anderson's finding, blunt force trauma.
Which implies the opposite, an injury from impact, hitting something or being hit. Not just a bruise, but force.
And specifically to the jaw and neck in this case.
Yes. Injuries that Dr. Anderson felt were completely inconsistent with just falling and getting stuck. They point towards violence, an altercation, and assault.
So you have science essentially pointing in two opposite directions. Accident versus homicide.
And the implications are just devastating. For justice, for the family's search for closure, when the basic scientific facts are so hotly debated by experts, it leaves this huge void of uncertainty.
And it makes you wonder about the process itself. How can two qualified pathologists look at the same body, essentially, and come to such different conclusions beyond just the missing organs issue?
Well, it highlights potential differences in scope, resources, maybe even mandate. The initial GBI autopsy might have focused on the most obvious potential cause given the scene. A private pathologist, hired specifically because the family suspects foul play, might look much deeper for subtle signs, secondary injuries, things that maybe weren't the primary focus initially.
So perspective and resources can genuinely change the outcome of an autopsy.
They certainly can influence the depth and focus, which can, in turn, lead to different interpretations and conclusions. It's not always just a simple difference of opinion. The context matters.
And through all of this, the constant is the family's fight.
Unbelievable persistence. Kenneth and Jacqueline Johnson. Their efforts have been just tireless. for over a decade now.
Against official rulings, dismissed lawsuits.
Against immense obstacles. It's really a powerful story of parental love driving this relentless battle against a system they feel failed Kendrick.
It takes incredible strength to keep going like that.
It really does. And hiring Ben Crump, that was a key strategic move. It wasn't just legal help. It amplified their voice.
Brought that national spotlight.
Exactly. It kept the pressure on, pushed for more investigation, fueled the legal challenges. It shows how, even when official doors seem closed, determination can keep a story alive.
And the internet played a huge role in keeping it alive too, didn't it?
Oh, massively. This case is almost a prime example of how social media and online communities can take a local tragedy and turn it into a global conversation.
Hashtags, petitions, videos.
All of it. Hashtag justice for Kendrick Johnson. Online forums dissecting every detail. It spread like wildfire, which had its pros and cons.
Pros being support for the family, pressure on authorities.
Right. It gave them a platform, built a community demanding answers. But the con?
Information overload, sorting fact from fiction.
Precisely. It becomes incredibly difficult to discern verified facts from passionate speculation. Online theories can take on a life of their own, sometimes running far ahead of the actual evidence.
So it's powerful, but messy.
Very messy. It shows the power of collective online focus, but also the challenge of navigating that flood of information where truth and rumor get tangled up.
So when we try to pull together these threads of truth, as we call them, in Kendrick's case, what do we actually end up with?
We end up with a really tangled knot, a web of conflicting evidence, basically. We got the official ruling, accident, positional asphyxia, backed by the GBI autopsy.
Directly contradicted by the family's private autopsy. Homicide, blunt force trauma, plus the missing organs bombshell.
Right. State medical examiner versus private pathologist. Then you have the questions around the surveillance footage, official investigation versus allegations of tampering.
And despite years of federal investigation, the conclusion was insufficient evidence for charges. Grand jury agreed. Case closed legally.
Legally closed, yes. But for the family, for so many in the community, it feels profoundly unsolved. Still feels like an open wound, like a murder mystery.
It's a stark example of what happens when truth feels buried.
Absolutely. The consequences are devastating. Lasting pain for the family, no closure, and this deep, corrosive distrust in the institutions meant to deliver justice. The threads don't weave a clear picture. They just create this enduring, painful mystery.
It leaves you wondering, in a situation like this, with such fundamental disagreements on the basic facts after all this time, how do we even find a path towards truth or justice? What stands out most to you in this whole tangled story?
That's the lingering question, isn't it? How do you bridge that gap when the official narrative and a family's reality are just worlds apart?
The death of Kendrick Johnson is a mystery that has haunted a community for over a decade. A young man dies in a gym, an official investigation is conducted, but a family's relentless fight for the truth has kept the case alive, transforming it into a national conversation about justice and trust. The threads of truth in this case are tangled in a complex web of conflicting evidence, a grieving family's unyielding pain, and a justice system that, for many, has yet to provide satisfying answers. Was it a tragic accident, or was it a murder that was covered up? The precise truth of what happened to Kendrick Johnson may remain elusive, but his story and his family's tireless pursuit of justice will forever be a stark reminder of the challenges in seeking truth. What do you think happened to Kendrick Johnson? Do you find the official autopsy more convincing, or do the family's findings and allegations resonate more with you? Join the conversation on our social media platforms using hashtag ThreadsOfTruth and hashtag Kendrick Johnson. Next time, we explore the bizarre case of the Erickson twins, a roadside incident that spiraled into one of the strangest mysteries ever caught on camera. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review for Threads of Truth wherever you listen. Your support helps us continue to shed light on these unsolved cases and search for the truth one thread at a time.